Do you remember the first time someone told you who you were? Perhaps it was your parents assigning you a name, a role, or a label. Boy, girl, special, or troublemaker. From that moment on, your life became a stage, and you, the actor, faithfully performed your part. You learned to live within the boundaries of this identity, shaping yourself to fit the expectations of others. But let me ask you this, who wrote the script? And why do we cling so tightly to roles we never chose? As children, we are innocent and unburdened, moving through the world without filters or masks. A child doesn't question who they are, they simply exist. They laugh, they cry, they explore. But as we grow, society starts to mold us. Teachers, peers, parents, all of them hand us mirrors reflecting back distorted images. You're smart, they say, you're lazy, you're creative, you're shy. And slowly these reflections begin to harden into the walls of our identity. Take a moment to consider the labels you've carried through life. Are you the responsible one in your family? The funny friend in your circle? The quiet achiever at work? These roles can feel comforting, even empowering, but they're also limiting. They're the bars of a gilded cage, defining what you can and cannot do, who you can and cannot be. Let me share a story from my own life. I was once told that I needed to find myself, as though my true identity was a treasure buried somewhere, waiting to be unearthed. So, like many of us, I set out on a quest. I tried on different masks, the overachiever, the rebel, the spiritual seeker. Each role felt like a costume, exciting at first, but ultimately hollow. The harder I searched, the more elusive myself became. It wasn't until I stopped looking that I realized the truth. There is no fixed self to find. Identity is not a treasure, it is a river, constantly flowing and changing. Imagine standing on the edge of a river, watching the water rush past. You wouldn't point to a single drop and say, that is the river. The river is its movement, its constant state of becoming. And yet, when we think of ourselves, we cling to the illusion of permanence. We say, I am this, or I am that, as though we are fixed points in time. But what if we are more like the river? What if our true nature is not to be, but to become? Let's take a closer look at this illusion of identity. Think about the roles you've played throughout your life. Perhaps you were a student, then a professional, a parent, or a partner. Each of these roles came with its own set of expectations and behaviors. But are you truly any one of these roles? Or are they just costumes you wear, depending on the stage you're on? Society loves to assign us labels. It tells us we are our careers, our achievements, our relationships. But these are just surface-level definitions. Deep down, we know this isn't the whole story. Have you ever achieved a goal you thought would define you? A promotion, a degree, a milestone, only to feel an unsettling emptiness afterward? That emptiness is a clue. It's a reminder that you are more than the sum of your achievements. I once met a man who had spent his entire life chasing success. By every outward measure, he had made it. A high-powered job, a luxurious home, the admiration of his peers. But when I asked him if he was happy, he hesitated. I've built a life, he said, but I'm not sure it's my life. His words stuck with me. He had become so attached to his identity as a successful person that he had lost touch with who he really was. This is the danger of the illusion of identity. When we define ourselves too rigidly, we become trapped. We mistake the mask for the face, the performance for the performer. But here's the thing, you are not your job. You are not your relationship. You are not your past mistakes or your future aspirations. You are the awareness behind all of these experiences. You are the river, not the rocks in its path. Let me paint you a picture. Imagine a snake shedding its skin. The old skin served its purpose. It protected the snake as it grew. But there comes a time when the snake must leave it behind to continue growing. It doesn't cling to the past. It doesn't mourn the loss of its old identity. It simply lets go. And in doing so, it becomes something new. This is the invitation I extend to you, to shed the skin of who you think you are, to step out of the roles and labels that confine you, to disappear, not in the sense of vanishing, but in the sense of dissolving the boundaries that limit you. When you let go of the need to define yourself, you create space for something greater to emerge. Of course, this is easier said than done. Letting go of identity can feel like stepping into the unknown. It's scary to release the familiar even when it no longer serves us. But consider this, the unknown is where all growth happens. It's where seeds sprout, where ideas are born, where transformation takes place. Think about the ocean. When you stand at its edge, it's impossible to see the other side. But that doesn't mean it isn't there. In the same way, when you let go of your current identity, you may not immediately see what lies ahead, but trust that the horizon will reveal itself in time. Let's return to the idea of the river. As it flows, it reshapes the landscape, carving new paths and creating new possibilities. In the same way, when you allow yourself to flow with life, you become a force of transformation. You stop clinging to the banks and start embracing the current. You realize that you are not separate from the world around you. You are part of its constant evolution. So how do we begin this process of letting go? Start by questioning the stories you've been told about yourself. Ask yourself, who am I when I'm not trying to be anything? What would I do if I weren't worried about what others think? These questions are the first steps toward dissolving the illusion of identity. Meditation can be a powerful tool in this journey. When you sit in stillness, you begin to notice the thoughts and labels that dominate your mind. You see them for what they are. Fleeting, impermanent, not you. Over time, you learn to rest in the awareness behind the thoughts. This awareness is your true self, the river that flows beneath the surface. Another practice is to embrace change, no matter how small. Try something new, a hobby, a perspective, a way of being. Each time you step outside your comfort zone, you loosen the grip of your old identity. You prove to yourself that you are not fixed, you are fluid. Finally, surround yourself with people who encourage your growth. Seek out those who see you not as a collection of roles, but as a being in constant evolution. Their presence will remind you of your own limitless potential. In closing, let me leave you with this thought. The illusion of identity is not a prison. It's a cocoon. And just as a caterpillar doesn't mourn the loss of its old form, neither should you. When you let go of who you think you are, you make space for who you're meant to become. You step into the river of life, flowing freely, endlessly, joyfully. So, my friends, let's dissolve the illusion. Let's shed the masks, the labels, the stories. Let's disappear from the confines of our old selves and emerge as something new, unrecognizable and gloriously alive. Change is a strange and wondrous thing, isn't it? We fear it, we resist it, and yet we are captivated by it. We marvel at the butterfly emerging from its cocoon, the seasons shifting from winter's starkness to spring's bloom, the way rivers carve new paths through ancient rock. Change is everywhere, shaping the world and reshaping us. And yet, when it comes to ourselves, we hesitate. Why do we cling so tightly to the known, even when it confines us? Why do we fear becoming something new? The art of becoming is not just about embracing change. It's about seeing change as an essential part of who we are. Becoming is our nature. It's the flow of life itself, the current that carries us from one moment to the next. And yet we often fight against this current, clinging to the riverbanks of our identities, our routines, our fears. To master the art of becoming, we must learn to let go, to trust the flow, and to see the beauty in transformation. Let me share a story. Years ago, I met a woman who had spent decades in a career she didn't love. She was successful by every outward measure, but she felt trapped. "I built this life," she told me, "but it doesn't feel like mine." She longed to change, to pursue a dream she'd carried in her heart since childhood. But she was afraid of what people would think, afraid of losing what she'd built, afraid of stepping into the unknown. At first, she started singing, "Lose it all, lose it all, lose it all. Oh, I'm changing everything and find myself tomorrow." One day, she made a decision. She left her job, sold her house, and moved to a small town to start a business creating art. It wasn't easy. There were moments of doubt, moments of struggle. But as she leaned into the process of becoming, she found something she hadn't felt in years: joy. "I'm not who I was," she told me, "and that's a good thing." Her story is a reminder that becoming is not about abandoning who we are. It's about uncovering who we've always been beneath the layers of expectation and fear. Becoming requires courage. It asks us to step out of our comfort zones, to embrace uncertainty, to face the parts of ourselves we'd rather avoid. But it also offers a profound reward, the chance to live authentically, to grow into the fullness of our potential. Think of a seed buried in the soil. It doesn't know what it will become. It can't see the tree it will grow into, and yet it pushes upward, breaking through the earth, reaching for the light. That's what it means to become. Of course, the process of becoming is not always smooth. Growth can be messy. Transformation can be uncomfortable. Have you ever watched a tree in a storm? Its branches bend. Its leaves are stripped away. Its roots cling to the earth for dear life. To an outsider, it might seem as though the tree is breaking. But the storm is not its end, it is its teacher. The winds strengthen its roots, the rain nourishes its soil, and when the storm passes, the tree stands taller and stronger than before. The same is true for us. The challenges we face, the discomfort we feel, the storms we endure, these are not signs of failure. They are the forces that shape us, that help us grow into who we are meant to be. It is through struggle that we learn resilience, through failure that we gain wisdom, through loss that we discover what truly matters. So, when you find yourself in the midst of a storm, remember, this too is part of becoming. One of the great paradoxes of becoming is that it often requires us to let go. To hold on to the old is to resist the new. Yet letting go is one of the hardest things to do. We cling to the familiar, even when it no longer serves us, because it feels safe. But safety is an illusion. The caterpillar might feel safe in its cocoon, but if it never leaves, it will never become a butterfly. To grow, we must release what holds us back. Think about your own life. What are you holding on to? A job that no longer fulfills you? A relationship that has run its course? A story you've told yourself about who you are or what you're capable of? Letting go doesn't mean forgetting or abandoning. It means making space for something new. It means trusting that the act of release will open the door to possibilities you can't yet imagine. Let me share another story, this time from nature. There's a tree called the jack pine whose seeds are encased in cones so tightly sealed that they can only open under extreme heat. For years, these cones lie dormant, waiting. Then a wildfire sweeps through the forest and the intense heat cracks the cones open, releasing the seeds. What seems like destruction is actually renewal. The fire clears the way for new growth and the jack pine begins again. This is the art of becoming, finding renewal in the fires of life, allowing the heat of transformation to release your potential. So how do we practice the art of becoming? How do we cultivate this ability to transform, to grow, to embrace change? First, we must learn to listen to ourselves, to the world around us, to the quiet voice within that whispers of possibilities. Becoming often begins with a sense of restlessness, a feeling that something is calling us forward. Pay attention to that feeling. What is it telling you? So what are you being drawn toward? What do you need to leave behind? Second, we must be willing to take risks. Becoming requires action. It's not enough to dream of change. We must step into it. This can be frightening, especially when the path ahead is unclear. But remember, every great journey begins with a single step. You don't need to have it all figured out. You just need to start. Third, we must embrace imperfection. Growth is not a straight line. There will be setbacks, detours, and moments of doubt. But these are not failures. They are part of the process. Think of a painter creating a masterpiece. Each brush stroke, each layer of color, even the mistakes contribute to the final work of art. The same is true for us. Our lives are masterpieces in progress, shaped by every experience, every choice, every moment. Finally, we must cultivate patience. Becoming is not instantaneous. It takes time, effort, and perseverance, but it's worth it. The most beautiful transformations are often the ones that unfold slowly, like a flower blooming or a star forming in the depths of space. Trust the process. Trust that even when you can't see it, you are growing. Let's return to the image of the river. As it flows, it carves new paths, reshaping the land. It doesn't rush. It doesn't force. It simply moves forward, moment by moment, adapting to the terrain, finding its way. In the same way, we don't need to force our becoming. We just need to keep moving, to keep flowing, to trust that the current of life will carry us where we're meant to go. In closing, let me leave you with this thought. The art of becoming is not about reaching a destination. It's about embracing the journey. It's about seeing each moment, each experience, each challenge as an opportunity to grow. It's about letting go of who you were so you can become who you are meant to be. So I ask you, what are you ready to let go of? What are you ready to become? The answers are within you, waiting to be discovered. Step into the river of life, trust the flow, and watch as you transform into something extraordinary. There are moments in life when the air feels charged with possibility, when the horizon stretches wider and the ordinary cracks open to reveal something extraordinary. As we stand at the threshold of 2025, this is one of those moments. This year isn't just another tick on the timeline. It is a call, a challenge, a beckoning toward transformation. 2025 is the year for radical rebirth, a year to shed what no longer serves us and step boldly into a new way of being. Radical rebirth begins with a question, as all great transformations do. Who do you want to become? Not who you've been told to be, not who you've settled for being, but the truest, most authentic version of yourself. Answering this question requires courage. It means facing the parts of ourselves we've avoided, the dreams we've buried, the fears that keep us rooted in place. But it also opens the door to boundless possibility. We cannot resist the power of this baby. We cannot refuse the power of this baby. We cannot refuse the power of this baby. Let's start with the story. Imagine a forest consumed by fire. To an untrained eye, it might seem like devastation. Blackened trees, scorched earth, smoke lingering in the air. But ecologists know better. They know that fire is not the end, it is a beginning. Beneath the ashes lies a fertile ground, teeming with the potential for new growth. Seeds that have waited for years, dormant and patient, now have the chance to sprout. The forest will return, not as it was, but as something renewed, vibrant and alive. This is the essence of radical rebirth, finding renewal in what seems like destruction, discovering potential in the midst of change. As individuals, we too are forests. Over time, we accumulate layers of growth, beliefs, habits, relationships, identities. Some of these layers nourish us, while others weigh us down. Radical rebirth asks us to examine these layers with honesty and compassion. What do we want to keep? What do we need to release? What new seeds are waiting to take root? The first step in this process is letting go. In a world that often equates change with loss, letting go can feel like defeat. But consider the snake shedding its skin, or the hermit crab abandoning its shell. These creatures aren't losing, they're growing. They're creating space for something new. What in your life do you need to shed? Is it a role you've outgrown? A belief that no longer aligns with your values? Is it a fear that keeps you small? Letting go is not easy. It requires trust in yourself, in the process, in the idea that what lies ahead is worth the discomfort of change. One of the great lessons of radical rebirth is that we are not static beings. We are dynamic, evolving, ever-changing. Think of a river flowing and shifting, never the same from one moment to the next. Or think of the moon cycling through its phases, each one necessary and beautiful in its own way. To resist change is to resist our own nature. To embrace it is to step into the fullness of who we are. But how do we embrace change? How do we move from fear to curiosity, from resistance to openness? It begins with a shift in perspective. Instead of viewing change as something that happens to us, what if we saw it as something we create? What if we became active participants in our own transformation? To do this, we must first cultivate awareness. Radical rebirth requires us to see ourselves clearly, to acknowledge both our strengths and our shadows. This is not about judgment or self-criticism. It's about understanding. Who are you in this moment? What drives you? What holds you back? The answers to these questions are the seeds of your rebirth. Next, we must dream. Too often we limit ourselves with small, cautious visions of what is possible. But 2025 calls for boldness. It calls for audacious dreams, for visions that make our hearts race and our souls stir. What do you truly want? Not what you think you should want, but what you desire in the deepest part of your being. Allow yourself to imagine it, to feel it, to believe in it. Dreams are the blueprint for transformation. They give us direction and purpose. Unless they become reality, they become your imagination. And then we can fall into the depressive, or else we can fall into just cravings, like mindlessly craving things in one's head. Dreaming, however, is only the beginning. Radical rebirth demands action. It's not enough to envision a new way of being. We must take steps to bring it to life. These steps don't have to be grand or perfect. Often it is the small, consistent actions that lead to profound change. Commit to one thing, one habit, one decision, one leap of faith that aligns with your vision. Then commit to another, or a classic course, and so on, until finally the desired future becomes reality. Then another. This is how transformation happens, moment by moment, choice by choice. Let me share another story. There was once a man who dreamed of climbing a mountain. He had no experience, no equipment, and no idea where to begin. But the dream was there. persistent and powerful. So he took a single step, then another. He stumbled, he doubted, he questioned whether he was capable, but he kept going. Along the way he learned, he gathered tools and knowledge, strength and resilience. And one day he reached the summit. The mountain didn't change me, he said later. The climb did. Radical rebirth is like this. It's not the destination that transforms us, it's the journey. Hayan Ashariya, high freedom, is a landscape that appeals to the weary. The name Ashariya differs from rebirth to rebirth, so it's too long to just call it by the name of the mountain. As you embark on your own journey of rebirth, remember that you are not alone. Transformation is a deeply personal process, but it is also a collective one. We are all interconnected, and our growth inspires and supports the growth of others. Share your dreams. Celebrate your victories. Seek out communities that nurture and uplift you. Together we can create a culture of rebirth, a world where change is not feared but embraced, where each of us feels empowered to become our truest selves. Of course, the path of radical rebirth is not without challenges. There will be moments of doubt, moments when the old feels safer than the new, moments when the effort feels too great. In these moments, remember the forest, remember the fire and the seeds and the promise of renewal. Remember that growth often looks like struggle, that transformation often feels like chaos, that rebirth often requires us to walk through the unknown and share vulnerability with like-minded people. And you do? Regardless of all the struggle, the growth is probably worth it. Above all, remember this: you are capable, you are resilient, you are worthy of becoming. The very fact that you are here, reading these words, is a testament to your potential. 2025 is your year. It is a blank canvas, a fertile field, a wide open sky. As we step into this new year, let us do so with intention. Let us honor the past while releasing what no longer serves us. Let us dream boldly and act courageously. Let us embrace the discomfort of growth, trusting that it will lead us to something beautiful. And let us support one another, recognizing that our individual rebirths contribute to a greater whole. 2025 is more than a year, it is an invitation. An invitation to shed the old, to step into the new, to become the person you've always been meant to be. Will you accept it? Will you answer the call? The choice is yours. The time is now, and the possibilities are endless.